Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our next No Mensa webinar installment. Today it's hosted by Principal Experience Delivery Consultant, Koti Tar. In today's webinar, Koti will help you foster stronger collaboration with improv principles and equip you with actionable strategies that can be applied personally and within your teams to enhance collaboration, creativity, and overall well-being. As usual, please do join in the discussion and say hello to each other in the chat. Just please make sure your settings are switched to everyone, not hosts and panelists, and then everyone can see your messages. But if you've got any questions for Koti, you can submit them using the Q&A function, and I'll try and get through as many as I can at the end. We are using auto-generated captions from Rev today. There is a chance some of these might get a bit muddled, as is the nature of auto-generated captions, but we'll make sure these are tidied up when we post the recording on our YouTube channel. So yeah, without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Koti, to kick things off.
Thank you so much. So first of all, I would like to say hello, everyone, and thank you for joining in today onto our webinar. Today, what I would like to talk about is how improv principle can help in collaboration in teams, but also enhance your personal well-being and also your personal creativity and confidence when working in our field or working with others, or just on your own. So I would like to start first with what we're going to talk about today. So today we are going to talk a bit about what is improv and how to use it to your benefit, how to use it to your team's benefit. And we will have a list of exercises that you can practice on your own with your team and then spread it across your organization as you are becoming more of an improv adept. So the next slide, I want to talk about what is important to keep in mind with improv is that it takes practice. Initially, you will feel what naturally comes up as a sense of a cringe, you know, when in high school going to theater class and you feel like, oh, this feels unnatural. It might feel unnatural in the beginning, but as you practice it, you will feel that it becomes more and more organic in the daily use. The next rule is always listen first. Active listening is one of the foundational parts of improv theater and working with improv techniques in your day-to-day life. You won't be able to respond if you are paying more attention to your thoughts than what the other person is saying. And we had an amazing webinar on active listening by our own George Moriarty and Joe Knowles. So if you want to, you can rewatch it and get some advice and tips and tricks on how to become a better active listener. And the last point that I want to highlight is that use improv when it is safe. Not all situations and not all environments are safe to do these organically positive and playful techniques. So you will have to recognize your circumstances first and use and apply improv principles when you feel safe. You know that your boundaries will be respected and that you can respect other people's boundaries with it. So after this, I will just move on to the next slide, which is just a bit of basics of improvisation. Where does it come from and what are the key principles? So improv is originally a theater technique, and it has been in use since ancient Rome, and it has developed itself throughout the centuries. And now if you meet with improv techniques, initially it will be in a child theater class. It is used to build up confidence and stage readiness, but all of these things can also be adapted to not only your workplace, but it has been adapted to be part of psychotherapy. So it has a very wide range. If you look up improv, you will probably find comedy as the backbone of improv. But as you will see, it's not confined to comedy. Although we all want to have fun while we work, it's not always just fun. And improv can be used in any situation where it is safe. The key principles of improvisation, and now I'm going to go and use one of the greats, Tina Fey in her book Bossy Pants has listed out a few of the principles which are really at the core of what we're trying and how to, in this how to work together with improvisation. And the first one is agree. the first rule of improvisation in agreeing is that you cannot go on with a conversation where there's a disagreement. Disagreement is like a full stop at the end of a sentence. You won't be able to pick up the conversation as easily. So what you do is that you agree, but it's not just agreeing. And okay, we have to point out, it's not agreeing when the other person is wrong. It's more like agreeing in principle and building on the other person's ideas. And this is where this comes in. The next one is add to the discussion. So this is where yes and comes in. If you have ever looked up improv, you will know that this is the sentence that is equal to improv in many, many places. Yes, and it's not enough to agree. You have to also play on the other person's ideas. You have to take it further. You have to make it part of a conversation. And the third point, according to Tina Fey, is to make statements. Don't just ask questions, but also add to the conversation with statements. And the fourth point is there are no mistakes. So this is a bit of a Bob Ross here. There are no mistakes, just happy accidents. And essentially, in improvisation, we cannot get hung up on mistakes. You take it, you brush yourself off and move on and continue the conversation. So these are the basics of improvisation. And this is where we're going to take it further and take it into our real life. So why improvisation in work collaboration? We know that our life and work are mostly unscripted and unplanned, just like improvisation and improvisational theater. So the techniques and tactics are very much pivotable onto your work collaboration. And because mostly in our field, in digital and design, we are working with other people to create things, create services, create products. We're always going to have to work with others. So collaboration is essential and improvisation is just enhancing collaboration. So what are the benefits of improvisation for individuals? Encourages creativity and out-of-the-box thinking, builds resilience and adaptability, like you have to make decisions swiftly, and it helps in that, and improves communication skills, but also enhances decision-making skills under pressure. And what I can say that as a person who goes back to the yes ending, for me, improvisation has enhanced my collaboration. If you have met me 6-7 years ago, I was the kind of person who would go into every battle. You know, when they tell you choose your or pick your battles, I picked them all. And this attitude towards work and towards colleagues created this very battle intensive atmosphere that even I didn't feel comfortable in. So shifting my perspective of saying no, but, and you're wrong, and saying yes and more and supporting others has helped me to become a better collaborator. And how it helps teams? Well, it enhances team communication. So as I said, that as I had my issues with my own communication, as soon as we started implementing these more supportive communication patterns, it has helped our teams become more positive and open-minded because there are no mistakes. It also helps with creating the no blame culture. And also it improves the problem-solving capabilities as a team because we are bouncing ideas off of each other. We are not afraid and we're not holding back our thoughts because we know that even if it doesn't make sense in its own, there will be someone who will be picking it up and will be adding to it. And also ideation is core part of our work, and the improv techniques stimulate innovation. And the next slide is very important, I think, not just to me, but for many of us, is how improvisation can help with people with neurodiversity. So we know that our life is mostly unplanned and unstructured, and a lot of people with neurodiversity find it more difficult to react in those situations. And what improv gives us, that if I am practicing improv, I'm getting more ready for those unstructured situations. I'm providing myself a structure, but also within a team, creating that structure for unstructured social spaces will even the playing field. And the next point is about unconditional positive regard. This is a psychological term and it has its controversies, but this is about in this case, building up the unconditional positive regard in team structures so that anytime and anyone who comes into the team will be supported by the team members. And this is a very important reassurance that people with neurodiversity and neurodivergent conditions feel more comfortable in. And so the last point is, with practice, it can help in stressful and time-pressured situations. Those things are pressure on everyone. And I think that what helps with improvisation techniques that you can and you gain more confidence in drawing out your own boundaries. So when we're saying that reacting in a stressful, time-pressured situation, even if your reaction is, I need to take this away, give me some time, is an immediate reaction and is helping with the conversation and with the team collaboration. So this was the introduction bit of the session. And now we're going to go into practical exercises. So we already mentioned yes and active listening. So in the next section of the presentation, what we're going to do is we're going through the foundational techniques and then techniques that are building onto them. And after we go through these, we're going to talk through two case studies, two situations that are very common in our field with designers and researchers and developers working together. So without any further ado, the first thing that we're going to talk about again is active listening, because active listening is improving communication and promotes a shared understanding, which is very important in what we're doing. So in improv, performers need to listen closely to each other to respond appropriately and keep the narrative flowing. It's about being fully engaged and being fully responsive. As I said, if you are already preparing your answer while the person is still talking, then probably you won't be able to adapt and be as flexible as the situation would require. So active listening is one of the core foundations of improv principles. And how do we apply it in the workplace? In all kinds of interactions, from team meetings to one-on-ones. Active listening fosters better understanding, more effective communication, and stronger relationships. And again, it's a very foundational thing. You would say that, oh, it's not improv, it's common sense, but here we are. It is very important. And that's why you get it repeated to you over and over, that good collaboration has active listening at its foundation. So the next technique that is building on active listening, because you have to listen to be able to respond, is, yes and. So yes and is, as I said, the sentence equal to improv. That in situations where you would say normally no or but, what a challenge to actually say yes and, when you feel that organically you would just push something down because it's coming either from someone who you have a conflict with, or it goes against something that you are very convinced of. And the rule encourages improvisers to accept what others have presented. No conditions, it's just a yes. And then expand on that line by thinking, and it promotes positive collaborative idea building. And in the workplace, during brainstorming or strategic sessions, you can use, and the team can use yes and to build on each other's ideas rather than shooting them down. If you have worked with brainstorming, you know that in brainstorming, the ground rule is no bad ideas. And this technique takes it and applies it in practice, that you're not just accepting every idea, but you're also taking it with you on a journey. You are building on someone else's idea. And this again ties back into the space where Tina Fey was saying that you are adding statements and that you are continuing ideas. And this is why yes and is so important, because it is not finishing sentences, it is carrying them on into the conversation. And the next technique that we're going to talk about is an evolution of yes and. It is called the gift. It stimulates creativity, encourages collaboration, and fosters a sense of shared responsibility and ownership. And in organizations where we work with Agile, that's something like a ground rule for Agile as well, that we have a shared ownership of the product that we're delivering. So again, nicely ties into improv. That in this improv technique, the performers give each other gifts by defining attributes like character traits or objectives. It's a way to create shared understanding and direction. And in the workplace, how we apply it is that when we are creating those statements that the next person will yes and, we are defining attributes of what we're having. So during a brainstorming session, one team member might propose an idea, the gift, and others build on it, each adding their own perspectives and enhancements. Again, it is a very good team exercise that is not just about sharing your ideas, but also embracing everyone else's. And how you are going to apply it in different situations, we're going to talk about it in the case studies, but I could say it now as well, that it is about engaging the other members of the team as well. So if you're working with people who are more withdrawn or are not as active in face-to-face conversation, it is about engaging them as well and handing the gift specifically to a given person to get their opinion, to get their addition to the conversation, to the gift. So the next technique that we're going to talk about is supporting. Again, it's not as much a technique as a foundational part of how improv works, that this principle involves all actors supporting each other regardless of the direction of the performance takes. It builds trusts and encourages teamwork. So if you have ever been part of an improv performance or have watched improv, you know that because it's unplanned and unscripted, and there are a lot of prompts that go out to the audience, if like you define our direction, you might not always agree where the performance is going, but you go on with the ride. And this is, I think, something that is so happening so often in our workplace, that we might not agree with all the steps that the project is taking, that our team is heading the direction, but we are going with it. So team members can practice supporting each other by being open to each other's ideas, helping when someone is struggling, or backing up a colleague's proposal. It might not have been our idea. We might not completely agree with it, but we are yes-ending it. It's not the right thing to say yes ending, because it sounds that I'm ending it. While it's the complete opposite. It's yes and continue. So the next technique that I'm going to, or exercise that I'm going to talk about, is building on supporting. And this is the making others look good. So let's take the example that we have the gift, we have built it up, and we have yes-ended it. No, we have handed it over with a yes and. And our goal is to lift up the other team members. So this principle encourages performers to focus on making their fellow actors shine rather than trying to be the star themselves. This fosters an atmosphere of mutual support and collaboration. And in workplace application, this can be in team discussions. Employees can focus on highlighting others' ideas and acknowledging their contributions and building on them instead of always trying to be the one with the best idea. And I'm going to be very honest, it took me a certain amount of time to get to this space where I think our field and many workplaces are competitive. And if you come in as a junior member of a team, you might think that you need to prove yourself. But in a team where there is the safety to make mistakes and there is a supportive culture, you will learn very fast that making others look good is better than making yourself look good. So this principle boosts team spirit, encourages collaboration, and nurtures the supportive work culture. So for example, when you're having a conversation, a presentation, mention others who have had a conversation about or have had a good point about the theme that you're talking about. It's really that simple. Just make sure that you're lifting others up. And the next one is, again, a very foundational principle. It is about storytelling. So storytelling is the fundamental part of improv where you create the narrative. And you create it on the spot. So there is, again, no script and no plan. The storytelling is happening in the moment. It allows the performance in improv theater to connect seemingly unrelated ideas into a cohesive, engaging tale. And this is something that we know how it works in our field, that we also do these connections of unrelated ideas. And how do we present it? How do we pitch an idea? And storytelling for us is just as important as an improv theater. So this can be used in meetings or presentations to make a point more engaging or to simplify complex ideas. Teams can also use storytelling in brainstorming sessions to generate new ideas. And the next technique will be, again, taking storytelling to the next step. So the next exercise is story spine. So this is not as generic. So this has been developed by an improvisation artist, Ken Adams, and it is a storytelling framework. And what we are doing in story spine is that we're using old storytell phrases, things like once upon a time and every day and until one day. So what we are doing with the narrative here is that we're giving it a structure that is reminiscent of stories. And this actually, if you are working in research and design, you probably have done this already when you were building personas for client work, or any of the user research outcomes that have been turned into personas are actually telling a story. And when you are delivering those stories, the personas to the stakeholders or the team that you're working with, you have to tell a story just as old as once upon a time. So this is something that, again, we have been using already, but it's something that if you're doing more consciously, it can add to the structure of brainstorming sessions. So again, it can be used in brainstorming and in presentations. And what you can do with it is to frame your narrative as an actual story. So the next one, again, is more of a ground principle that we're talking about. This is thinking on your feet. So improv theater requires performers to react quickly to new situations and ideas. It's about being present and adaptive, thinking quickly to respond to changes in the scenario. For example, if you imagine improv theater, that you are in a scene and then suddenly someone tells you that the chair that is in front of you now becomes a jet ski, and you have to act with it. You have to go with it. Now it's a jet ski. You're not sitting on a chair, you're sitting on a jet ski. Apologies for the example. I don't know, maybe it's too summer holiday now. But just to note, I have never sat on a jet ski, and I don't think that I will ever do that. It's just too dangerous for me. But that is theater. In the workplace, possibly it will never happen that your chair turns into a jet ski, but this skill is vital during crisis management and fast-paced projects or unexpected changes. Again, not jet ski. It helps in adapting to sudden changes in client requirements or project scope. And you can say that, and honestly, I think that we all are doing this to a certain extent. What these principles are helping us with, and exercising these in brainstorming sessions, what helps us is to apply more conscious thinking to these principles. Again, it's very much common sense, but if you pay more attention to it and practice it with your team and by yourself, it will enhance your collaboration, because it is speeding up problem solving and also builds resilience in the team and in the individual. So the next one is, and this is going to be a bit controversial, is mirroring. So probably when you have ever watched improv theater, you have seen mirroring, where the performers match each other's physical movements and speech patterns to build rapport and shared understanding. And it can become quite annoying very fast, but it's not the same. So what we are doing with mirroring is that we are matching, for example, the communication styles of the people that we work with, and we are mirroring the expressions that they're using so that they know that we are sharing an understanding. An example of this can be that when you're working with someone who is not using the right vocabulary, instead of instantly correcting the use of the word, try mirroring it back to them and take them on a journey of learning. So mirroring is fostering empathy because you are, again, not pushing back on the other person, but taking what they have and going with it. It's, again, a bit of a yes and, but instead of the what is being said, you are focusing on how it's being said. So it might not involve physical mirroring of the other. I would think that it mostly doesn't involve physical mirroring of the others, but I cannot promise that it's not happening. And what you will see that, and this is on the topic of neurodiversity, that mirroring can sound a bit like masking, that you're trying to match the speech patterns, the speed, just the atmosphere of the place where you're in. But the difference between masking and mirroring is that masking is an unconscious defense mechanism that has been built out in someone to protect them. And it is like a reflex. Well, mirroring is a conscious effort. So it is not, while it sounds controversial, it is not from a neurodiversity perspective, because again, it's more about taking the control of what you are doing and how you're doing it in a team. So these were the exercises. I think that I'm being a bit fast, but let's just move into the next section, which is case study. So what we're going to talk about now is a case study where a designer has to present something to a senior stakeholder. And what are the techniques that this person could use in this situation? And I think that whoever is working in the field of design has met difficult conversations when it is about being the subject matter expert and being the decision maker are very much clashing. So in this scenario, let's say it's Lily, who is a junior designer at a digital agency like Mensa, and they have been tasked with presenting a new website design to Mr. Thompson, the senior stakeholder and the CEO of the client company. The new design is innovative, featuring unconventional navigation and interactive elements that Lily believes will set the client apart from competitors. But Mr. Thompson is a very experienced person, and he has decades of experience in his own field, and they have been through many iterations of their own website. So he has an idea of what he thinks the users want, but he has an exact idea of what he wants. And also what you will see that Mr. Thompson is a person who also has the knowledge to talk about interactions, to talk about design minutiae. So the challenge is that Lily is representing a more innovative and, let's say, not as I would say not as based in business requirements, but she is based in business requirements, but still has the flexibility of being the subject matter expert. And she will have to present to Mr. Thompson, but she knows that there will be resistance. There will be resistance to the navigation that she created and some of the interactions, which you would call an unconventional design. And what needs to happen is that the stakeholder should not only be engaged in the presentation, but also has to feel heard. So we will see how the techniques that we have talked about previously feed very much into the scenario. So the techniques that Lily has employed are yes and. So when Mr. Thompson brings up a concern, for example, about the unconventional navigation, Lily doesn't dismiss it. Instead, she says, yes, I understand where you're coming from with the navigation concerns, and I have incorporated this design element to help users feel more engaged while using the website. And what about using tooltips or other support methods to get the users or the first-time users, get them accustomed to the web page? And with yes and, Mr. Thompson will recognize that his perspective is listened to, that there is Lily's perspective, but he can add on to it with his comments. So it's not shut down, but it's taking it and the consideration of his thoughts It is, again, active listening and yes and. And the next example that what Lily does is supporting. So whenever Mr. Thompson offers an idea or a modification, Lily supports his viewpoint by showing how it can integrate with her design. For example, if he suggests a more standard menu for easier navigation, Lily might respond with, "That's a valid point. We can incorporate a more standard menu option while retaining some interactive elements to achieve a balance. Let's see how that might look." So by supporting Mr. Thompson's ideas, Lily promotes teamwork, making the design process feel like a joint effort rather than a tug of war. So in this situation, using improv techniques changed the dynamics, that it wasn't just a presentation. It wasn't me telling you something and you either accepting or pushing back, but it became a conversation. The engagement was not one-sided. There was no full stop in the conversation. So whenever there was a bit of resistance in Mr. Thompson, Lily has engaged in taking those into consideration and weaving the narrative with the comments that Mr. Thompson had. Again, we see how thinking on her feet has helped Lily to adapt fast to a situation, but also how she has taken with yes and an active listening everything that Mr. Thompson, well, everything that we said in this example, Mr. Thompson had said, and has woven it into the story and the narrative. Again, this just shows that while you are representing design ideas, you can side, or not side, but you can take on board business requirements, but also the viewpoints and perspectives of someone who has a different experience in web pages, web design, or digital products. So this was our case study 1, and our case study 2 is a researcher and an agile dev team. So in this case, we have someone who has been doing intense research on a product and how to get a shared understanding and good rapport with the agile dev team. So what we see is that those fields are they seem to be very far apart from each other while they are not, but we have been facing these challenges from either side of the aisle of how to create better collaboration and easier communication when what we're talking about is so different about the same thing. So in this example, Alex is a user researcher, and he has just concluded an intensive user study on a new app his digital agency is developing. His findings are extensive, including a variety of user behaviors, preferences, and potential pain points. He now needs to communicate this complex data to the dev team, who will then use this information to prioritize and adjust their upcoming development sprints. The dev team, primarily focused on technical aspects, might find a vast amount of qualitative and quantitative data overwhelming. Not just that, but if you imagine that providing research data to people who don't usually analyze research data, it can be misinterpreted, misunderstood, and taken out of context. So it is very important that the researcher who's working either with stakeholders and both with dev teams create the right narrative for those outcomes. So the research data is multifaceted, and that can lead to misinterpretation, and the developers might struggle to see the relevance of certain findings or to understand how they translate into actionable development tasks. As I said, we're talking about the same thing, but from such different perspectives that the interoperability is not always obvious. So this is here the challenge. The desired outcome is clear, actionable roadmap derived from the research data that the dev team can easily integrate into their workflow. So the first technique then Alex would have to apply is storytelling. And I think that we touched on it already, that storytelling is something that researchers and designers have been working with if they have ever done a persona. So this is about creating a narrative, a story around the personas or the user journey through the app. And instead of just presenting the raw data, Alex can craft a narrative for each persona. Meet Sarah, a 20-year-old journalist. When she first logs in, she's looking for this, where here's where she encounters a hiccup. So while explaining this as a story through and a journey through the app, Alex, he has a better chance of getting engagement from the technical team. So by using storytelling, the data becomes more relatable and more memorable, and the dev team can more easily empathize with the user needs and challenges, understanding the why behind the data. The other thing that can happen here, and I think that this is something, again, that I mentioned already, is the making others look good. So when the conversation is happening, sometimes you have to prompt the conversation to flow better. And for example, in this example, Alex can engage the team because they have the knowledge about technical feasibility. So when we are reaching points in the storytelling where there is input required or ideas required, what Alex can do is call on the talent and previous observations of the devs from previous sessions, or if this is his first session, it is about prompting the user struggle. Like, I found that users struggle with X feature. I'm curious about your thoughts, Jake, on a potential technical solution. So again, naming the other person in this case helps Alex to get them to share their own perspectives. And this approach validates the developer's expertise, making them active participants in the solution finding process. It fosters mutual respect and positions the meeting as a collaborative effort instead of a presentation. And the next bit is thinking on your feet. So as the discussion evolves, developers may raise new concerns or it provides insights Alex hadn't considered. So when you go out to do user research, you might not understand all the technical limitations of the platform that you're working on, and some of the findings they might change the outcome if you learn about the technical perspective of these things. So with Alex thinking on his feet, he can take the inputs of the dev team on board and pull out data points that become relevant as the conversation goes on. So in conclusion, what happened here is that by incorporating improv techniques, our researcher has transformed what could have been a tedious, confusing data dump or just a flat, non-engaging conversation presentation into an engaging collaborative discussion. The developers leave the meeting with a clear understanding of the user needs and actionable insights for the next sprint. And beyond just data transmission, Alex's approach ensures a deepened sense of teamwork with both researcher and developers aligned in their mission to create a user-centric product. So these were just two examples of how the different improv techniques can be used in everyday collaboration. So these were case studies. And the next bit that I will be just summarizing all of this is how to implement improv in your organizational culture, because it's not just a one-person game. Improv never is a one-person game. You have to have the backing. Even if it's just your team, then do it among your team, but creating a psychologically safe culture where there is also no finger pointing culture and radical honesty around the themes projects that you're working on is an essential requirement. And if you have that in a team, good, but if you have that in the organization, even better. Because as I said in the beginning, you cannot really do improv if it's not safe to do so. So that's why the first groundstone is psychological safety in your organization. The next one is the no blame culture. As we said, there are no mistakes in improv. And for this whole thing and all the exercises to work, you have to get the walls down. And in a finger pointy culture, everyone is very guarded. You won't share your ideas if you are afraid that someone's going to shoot it down. So you have to create a culture that even when mistakes are made, you are looking for a solution. Again, bounce back, brush yourself off, and move on. to create that safety. And radical candor is an important thing because I think that it can easily be misunderstood as being painfully honest and a bit abrasive, but no, it's about being firm and kind. The whole thing of improv is to be positive, be engaging, and lift each other up. So radical candor, in our case, is about being honest about ourselves and honest about the project, and be supportive with our teammates and our organization. And so where can you use and where can you implement improv in your organizational culture? It can be one-on-ones that you have with your manager or your direct report. It can be team meetings. It can be workshops. And you can also use it in your retros and essentially any group activities where it's safe. And so this is something that, again, it needs practice. But in all of those scenarios where you are working with someone, either on one-on-one or in a group setting, it is something that you can practice and get better at. So this was my last slide. And first of all, I would like to thank all of you for coming and listening to this session. And we're going to move on to the Q&A, but I also want to say that if you have any questions around this, or if you want some ideas bouncing a bit of improv about how to apply improv, you can see my LinkedIn profile linked and just pop me a message. Thank you.
Also, thanks, Cutty. There's so much, so much useful information there. I love the yes, and it's such a simple but powerful tool. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, please do submit them now using either the chat or the Q&A function, and I will try and run through as many as I can. Cutty, so there were loads of great kind of tips and techniques in there. Kind of where would you say was kind of maybe the best place to start, and what tips would you give to those who, maybe they're more reserved or not the most confident in collaborative situations? Kind of are there any kind of exercises they can do to, for example, kind of improve the ability to think on their feet kind of before they kind of take that into a collaborative situation?
That is a very good question. So where would you start? I think that, and I said it before, that the foundation is active listening. But if you are moving on to the next step of creating your own interaction based on it, yes, and is a very good one, because you can also practice it after the conversation happened. So if you are like me and ruminate after, oh, I could have said that, oh, it could have gone another way. I have two mantras that I think of. One bad meeting, one ruin a relationship. So you can redo it and use yes and as a practice, that I could have done it differently. What if it would have been a yes and? Well, mostly you can control and practice things that are in your control. So that's why I think yes and is the good practice that you can do on yourself, on your own. And for the thinking on your feet, again, we are all are very different people. Some people are more action-based, and some people are more analytical and like to take their things away. And I think that one of the things that you have to learn, if you're an analytical person, not to feel pressure to give an answer on the spot. Your instant answer can be, let me take this away. I'm doing this thumb exercise by I'm physically drawing the boundary. That protect yourself. You don't need to be pressured into, even if the scenario is fast-paced, you can have your control over how you're reacting to things. So I would say that creating your own boundary of what is too fast for me is very important, and practicing yes and.
Amazing, thank you. I can't see any questions just yet, but I think if people are kind of still ruminating, as I'm sure you said, they can catch you on LinkedIn, or email the questions into hello@nomensa.com, and we can pass those on to Cutty. Cutty, is there any kind of further reading, kind of maybe on kind of improv techniques that you could recommend to anyone?
Oh, that is a very good question. As a fan, I would recommend Tina Fey's book, Bossy Pants. It is a humorous, not biography, but like a book about her own life. And just a part of it is about improv. But what I would say is that any of these techniques can be Googled and looked up and practiced. But yeah, no, the world is your oyster. Just Google.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I can't see any questions there, so I imagine everyone is kind of. Oh no, we've just had a question pop up from Thomas. Thomas asks, do you feel there was a certain stage in your career when you became kind of most comfortable doing this, or is it something that came naturally?
That is a very good question about when does it become organic. And I would say that I am now, let's not say that I'm not at the early stages of my career, and it still is something that I have to be mindful of and practice. So what I would say is that it is it has to tick in the back of your head from early on. As I said in one of the examples, that when I started my career, I was more of a force majeure, coming in like a tornado and just smashing things here and there. And if I had this mindfulness early in my career to be more collaborative and do yes and, I think that I would have made my and my colleagues' life much easier. So I think that it doesn't come with experience. Just start doing it. Start trying, spreading your wings, whatever stage in your career at. It's just worth trying.
Awesome, thanks, Kati. So we just had another question coming from Nathan. Nathan asks, it seems some of these techniques require buy-in from all parties. So if you could pick one tool that an individual could use to improve collaboration with those who may not be kind of on board, which one would that be?
Oh yeah, this is a good one. So yes, I have had this before. And again, I'm going to go back to yes and, because you are controlling, you yes ending a conversation. And that has had such a massive impact on how my collaboration has worked, that even if I disagreed on a very intrinsic level with my conversation partner, I took it on me to add this positive spin to it. Again, I'm not accepting fundamentally misaligned things, but I can just steer the conversation. So if your partner is not improving with you, yes and is still a very strong and helpful tool. And the other thing is about the narrative that you can build yourself. And I think that as researchers and designers, we do it with our work anyways, but it's something that you can work with and build up the narrative of the conversation that you want to have. And I think that yes and storytelling together are a very good combo to do individually.
Awesome. And did you find maybe, you know, well, when you are kind of yes anding those that maybe aren't kind of on board or aren't very collaborative, do you find they would kind of naturally follow you and start yes anding you after that?
Not in all the cases. So as I said, you control yourself, you can have that spin, but not in every case will you find someone who reciprocates your interactions, and that's okay. Again, as we said in the beginning, practice it when it's safe. When you realize that the conversation is always going to hit a dead end, you might know that this might be the place where you finish the conversation.
Yeah.
It might be that the other person is not in the right situation mindset, and in another scenario, in another meeting, they would be more open to this. Or if it's in a team setting, you can just take that person to one side after the conversation and try to figure out how to improve on the relationship again, because again, to do collaboration, you have to have collaborative partners. So again, I think that it is about finding when it's safe to do.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was brilliant. That is just about all we have time for, I'm afraid. But yeah, thank you to everyone that tuned in. Cotty, thank you so much. There are so many useful tips and tricks in there. We are going to have the recording available for you ASAP. So yeah, please do keep an eye on your emails for when that pops up in your inbox. Our next webinar is called Building Public Sector Websites Effectively with Local Gov Drupal. And that's taking place on 19th of September. Sign-ups are now open. You can find that on our Eventbrite page. So yeah, please do join us for that one. And yeah, thank you. And we'll see you all very soon. Cheers.
Thank you.